What up, everyone? So today we've got a special video, kind of a two-in-one type of video. Two different things I'm going to touch on. One, the review of these mystery minis, and also some things that Funko has been doing that I'm not really a fan of. So you'll see the main title of this video is Fuck You, Funko, and that's because there's a lot of things they've been doing lately that I'm not a fan of, other people aren't a fan of. They're screwing their customers, and they're kind of screwing themselves in the process. So that's things I want to talk about. Neither of which were big enough to get their own video, so I thought I'd kind of merge them into one and kind of talk about both, because the things they're doing relate to this series specifically. So let's talk about some of their comings and goings. This series specifically, there was a lot of super common figures in there. And what I mean by that is that for the longest time, Mystery Minis, the most common figure was 1 of 12. The boxes usually had 12 figures, so you get one of each type in there, and that made sense. More recently, they've been doing these 1 of 6, which means there are 2 of them in every box of 12. That means if you buy a case of them, you're getting duplicates in there. And we haven't been a fan of that for a long time. This started back in, I think, 2017, like 4 years ago, something like that, with the sci-fi mystery minis. Before that, the most common figures were 1 of 12. They went with much higher rarities of 1 of 44, but the lowest was 1 of 12, and that was fine. That made sense, and that made good business strategy. Then the sci-fi series came along, and they first introduced the 1 of 6. And right off the bat, I wasn't a fan of it, and other people weren't either. But it wasn't that big of a deal, because it was just one. It's like, okay. And also, when they did the 1 of 6, it was an exclusive one to Hot Topic, so it was a little bit rarer because it's exclusive. Fine, no big deal. Over the years, we've been seeing it more and more, and it's just not a good idea for them to do. It's like a lose-lose situation for everyone. Come to this more recent series. Not only do we have 1 of 6, we have 4, and the specialty series has 5. 5 super common characters in a box of 12. That means if you buy a box of 12 and pay for 12 different figures, 10 of those are super common. And that's just such a waste. And I feel like the series didn't sell that well because of that thing. So obviously it's bad for the consumer because we're getting a lot of really common, worthless product. But I feel like it's bad on Funko's side as well because they're not selling as much that way. I don't think they made a lot of their business selling them one at a time. I think the business that they got from Mystery Minis was from people like me that buy full cases that actually want to collect the whole series. If you really wanted to collect full series of Mystery Minis, you're not going into individual stores and buying them one at a time because you're going to waste tons of money and you're never going to get the full series that way. The other way to do it is buying them off eBay or something like that, and you can do it that way, but it's just extremely expensive. So I just don't think that was a good move strategically because I don't think anyone wanted to buy a full case of those because you had so many commons. Now, I get what they're going for. Back in the days of when I was a kid, you bought trading cards and things like this. And most of the time when you bought packs of trading cards, 90% of it was duplicates. And that was just the way of the world. It was no big deal because, 1, they weren't that expensive. And 2, they were just very small and cheap. So even though you had hundreds of duplicates, you could gather them all up and put them in a little case or a tin if you wanted to save them. And it was really no big deal. And if you really didn't like them, you could toss them out. Now, with these figures, what price of one blind box is the price of like 3 or 4 card packs of what they were back in the day. And now you have these full-size figures, so when you get duplicates, it's very hard to store them. And, you know, the obvious thing is to sell them online, but when you have these super common figures, they're so cheap that it's usually not worth it to sell online. Usually the price to ship it is about what they're worth, so you get left over with all these figures and you can give them away, but honestly, if you don't know someone that might want them, it's kind of a waste. It seems like a waste to throw them out, but you really don't have many other options. So I feel like that's deterring people from buying it. And one of the things I'm sure the company would say is that, you know, they don't always have licensing to all these characters, and sometimes they can't get the licenses to enough characters to make a full-on series, but that wasn't the case here because they did 3 different versions. They did the base set that was common, they did the Target exclusive, and they did the specialty series, all which had variant figures. They could have put that down into one series, not did all the variants of them, and then had them so there were no super common 1 of 6 figures, and then I think everyone would have been happy. We as the collectors would have bought full cases, that would have brought the prices down on some of the more expensive figures, so on and so forth. And inadvertently, when people want to buy these on eBay, having those super common figures actually drives up the price of the rare ones because they're harder to come by now. When people aren't buying full cases, then the companies aren't supplying them. So to give you an example, Hot Topic or Target, for example, they supply things when they run out. So if they have them in a Target shop and they sell out of those immediately, they're going to order more and they're going to put them back on the shelves. That's how it goes. That's how more of those figures get produced, and that brings the price down of those very high rare figures. On the other hand, if they're not selling well, if they're selling one at a time and they're not selling full cases, they're not going to restock them. They're not going to order a bunch more. That means those rare figures are even rarer, and then that drives the price up on eBay. So as you can see, the strategy of this whole 1 of 6 super common figure really screws everyone here. The consumer loses out. The companies like Target, Hot Topic lose out because they're not selling as much product, and then Funko isn't selling as much product. They don't lose as much because when they do these exclusive deals with Target and Hot Topic and so on, they usually pay them up front no matter what, so they get money from that. But they lose out on the more when they're selling them themselves because people aren't buying them as much. And when you see these in stores, if even one box is missing of a case of 12, you're much less likely to buy any of them when there's all these super common figures. So I hope people from Funko see this, and I hope they just stop because it's just super annoying, and it made it really hard to collect this series. I just wasn't a fan of going out and trying to collect them, and I just was so reluctant to get them at any store because they were so common. Now, I did bite the bullet, and I did buy the Target set because that had the least amount of commons, but even that, there were so many mistakes that were made with this specific line that it's just getting kind of ridiculous. They're really getting lazy on this. So, for one, apparently there was a misprint. Let me look up the picture. I believe it was on the Specialty series. No. Yeah, it was the Specialty series where there was that looked like it had 3 1 of 6 common exclusives in there, but that actually wasn't the case. Maybe it wasn't the Specialty series. No, it was the Target one. I'm sorry. The Target one had on the box, I'll be showing a picture, there was the exclusive 3 figures, the Glowworm, the Tato Head, and the G.I. Joe, and they were labeled 1 of 6. That actually wasn't true. They weren't all super common. That would have been somewhat okay because, like I said, with the Sci-Fi series mystery minis, they had a 1 of 6, but it was the Hot Topic exclusive, so it was harder to get those, so it made it a little more reasonable to make them more common. So here was an example where, okay, fine, these are the common ones, but at least they're exclusive, no big deal. That was not the case. So apparently, the Mr. Potato Head was 1 of 72, and the G.I. Joe was more 1 of 12, and I'm not sure of the exact numbers because I don't think anyone ever really came forward and said we made a mistake, but it was very obvious they did. They've done this in the past. It's either a misprint or some miscommunication or something wrong in the factory, but it wasn't 1 of 6. I bought a full case at Target, and I should have gotten 2 of each of those exclusives. I did not. I got 2. I got 1 Glowworm, I got 1 of the G.I. Joe, and no Mr. Potato Head. So that didn't make any sense. So that means that statistically, these were off. So fine, I was already pissed off about that because I kind of bit the bullet and got a case there. So that was problem number 1. Problem number 2, when they make these exclusive sets, you see the 3 exclusives there. That means there are 3 from the regular series that get swapped out. Because there are only 12 here, when they do exclusives, they don't just add 3 exclusives, they switch them out. That means they pick 3 that were in the base set and replace them with 3 exclusives. That's how it's been. That's how it's always been with Funko. That's how it almost always is with any series. That's how it's supposed to be. Again, this did not happen here. The G.I. Joe figure in there was the alternate exclusive tan version, but I actually got the one from the base series that was the fatigue print. Why that was the case, I don't know. It seems like a mistake on their part too, because that figure is not shown on the box and is not supposed to be in that series. So again, I go out of my way to buy exclusives from Target, and then I get things that I can find cheaper elsewhere. So again, got screwed on that one. There were just so many ways that they just fucked up on this series, and we as the consumer have to pay for it. And I think people saw that, or at least hopefully they're seeing it now, and I think Funko's going to lose business on that behalf because of it. Now, we're seeing less and less mystery minis as time goes on, And of the ones we see, I really like mystery minis, but I so rarely collect them because they so often suck. Not just because of the bad business practices of companies like this, but because the quality of them goes down more and more. When they first came out with like the horror series 1, 2, and 3 and sci-fi ones, those were amazing. I love those. I have them to this day right here. All lined up right there. I have every single figure, went out of my way to get them because they were immaculate. I loved them. They were fantastic. And since then, the quality has really declined. And for series that are like Star Wars and Marvel, they always have to be bobbleheads, and that ruins it. I know they have to do it legally, so it's not their fault, but it just kills it so much. So we're getting less and less mystery minis as time goes on, and of the ones we get, they're just so crappy. They're just so low in quality. But every once in a while, like this retro toy one, I get ones that I like, and it seems like they put some quality into it, so I'll check them out because I just like mystery minis that much. So that all being said, that's the first part. Fuck you, Funko. Clean up your business practices. Pay attention. Print the right things. Get the right figures in there. Don't screw us on the prices. Like, so many things I have to complain about, and that's why I have to say, fuck you, Funko. Like, really? Like, you're just getting this lazy on this? You care this little about your customers to do things like that? It's just really shitty. And once again, I hope people from Funko are watching this, because I'll stand by it, and they really do need to pay more attention, because they're losing really good clientele. That being said, let's get on to the review portion of this figure series. So, as I stated in the last figure review, we have a new rating system, 4 basic scores, concept and design, execution, price, and value. Starting out with the first one, the concept and design. I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. Wasn't bad, but I wasn't particularly blown away on anything here. It was just kind of average. And considering that there were 5, I believe, Mr. Potato Head or Mrs. Potato Head figures, 5 different versions, those figures are just so basic. They look exactly like the original toy. There was no design quality at all. Some of these figures have some decent design quality, but nothing super crazy. It's just very, very basic. It doesn't look like there was a ton of thought put into it. Most of them look similar to their original toy models, but some look nothing like it, and they just have this kind of like mystery mini twist. So it was okay. Nothing really negative to say about it, but I don't think a ton of design quality really went into those. It was, for the most part, just kind of average. So I still liked it, though, so 6 out of 10 on that. Next, the execution. Also a 6 out of 10. The sculpt on them is fine. They usually come out fine. They're not bobbleheads, so that's cool. And the paint job wasn't super great. Nothing bad design-wise, just like a lot of times with these when they mass produce them, the paint isn't always in the lines. They're often like off by like a fraction of an inch or something like that, so paint kind of bleeds onto other parts that it shouldn't. Not a big deal, but definitely not a good thing. But overall, it was pretty good, and I still enjoyed it, so again, right around that 6 out of 10. The price. A few things to mention here. So mystery minis on the whole usually have a set price, and they vary depending on where you get them. The very cheapest I've ever gotten mystery minis ever was $5. And that was very cheap. There was only one shop I ever knew that gave them at that price, and that only was the price when you bought a full case. There was one comic shop I did that's now out of business that sold them for $5. Most of the time, the cheapest will be $6, and then they go up from there. Like Target is $7, and then I think Hot Topic is like $8.50 or something like that. So they range around that price. So depending on what store you go to, it's usually set at that price. But when we're talking about the price, we also have to take into consideration things you have to buy online. If it's not possible to get them in store, then the price on eBay and things like that is taken into consideration. So a score on this is only going to get a 4 out of 10. And that's because when they put in these super common figures, that technically drives down the price. If we're getting a bunch of duplicates of figures and we're paying for it, that doesn't mean we bought each one. Like, that's not fair to pay the price for each one when we're getting duplicates. We should be getting them at a discount price if we're getting lower quality. That only seems fair. They're not going to price them out individually because they're mysteries, but when they put all these super common figures in there, that brings down the price because I can't resell it and I can't do anything with it. I can't store them. I have to give them away. As I was saying earlier, the super common figures are too cheap to sell online most of the time. They're just go for like $2 or $3, and it's not worth my time to list and ship it at that price. So yeah, that does bring down the price of it. That makes it too expensive because we're getting things we don't want or need. And as I was saying at the beginning, when you are buying less in store, there are less of those high quality figures and the price goes up significantly. And I hate when they do rare versions of the exclusives, like this supposedly 1 of 72 Mr. Potato Head Target one. Even though I bought a case, I had to pay an outrageous price online. And then the Specialty Series one, there was a flocked My Pet Monster. That goes for an outrageous price as well. And the other thing about this whole Specialty Series, it makes it very difficult to get those. Because the exclusives are very clear. Target exclusives, you get them at Target. Walmart exclusives, you get them at Walmart. It's very simple. But the Specialty Series, they're never very clear on exactly where they go. And it changes from time to time, so we don't always know. And honestly, I've never seen Specialty Series Mystery Minis in store. I never have. And people always say, well, oh, they went there. It's like, I'm sure they did, but I never once saw them. So it's not clear where they go. So we're forced to buy those ones online. We have no choice because I don't know where to go in store to get them. So that being said, that also drives up the price that we have to pay online. That being said, price, 4 out of 10. Now the value, or collectability, I should say. The collectability of this, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. Because these are very iconic characters, and I think they will hold their weight over time. Not super significantly, so I don't think they're going to go up crazy in price. The price hike has pretty much already happened. These exclusive ones that you couldn't get in store already did that price jump, and they're going to stay there pretty consistently. But most of these characters are very iconic, at least people of our generation, because we remember these. It's things like Mario or Mickey. It doesn't matter if they never made another Mario game for the rest of time. Mario will still be a memorable character, and things that he has his face on will still sell. Same with Mickey. It's just an iconic character that goes back to the original of something. And these are some of our very first toys that we had. Even our parents, like they had Mr. Potato Head. That was one of the first toys they ever had. So there's a nostalgia factor in there. And once you have that, it'll hold its value for a very significant amount of time. It'll take a long time for these to completely fade out because most of these toy companies try to revive these series every decade or so. So I believe for that reason, they will hold value and possibly go up in value over years. Mystery Minis themselves don't skyrocket in price. They pretty much hold the price they are and for a very long time, and then they'll go up years and years and years and years down the road, decades maybe. So as I was saying, for that reason, 6.5, I think it's decent investment. I think it's something that will hold value. I think it's something that if you do have the full set, you'd have no problem selling it now or years down the line. But again, nothing crazy. 6.5. So that being said, totaling those 4 scores together with everything factored in, it's going to get a 5.6 out of 10. And that's pretty much what I have to say about it. I liked it. I liked it because I like these characters, but there's nothing crazy about it. It was just barely good enough to go out and get and to put some money into. But had I known about all these defects about the Target exclusives and that I wasn't going to get them buying the case, honestly, I might not have. Had I known how much trouble was going to be going into it, I might not have put my money into it and I might not have collected this series. As for, I'm sure it's the same for a lot of you others, I pretty much know when I'm going to shoot for getting the whole set right away. I know when I see it the first time, either oh, I might get one of those, or no, I'm for sure getting that whole set because I love it. So I've decided beforehand, and had I known, I might not have made that same decision. So I hope this is helpful. I realize this series is very outdated, by the way. I would have reviewed it months and months ago when it first came out, but I was moving, I didn't have the studio set up, I was in between houses, so I would have loved to have done it back then and talked about this and gave people more warning so you had a little more help when you were going to collect it. So the information about collecting isn't relevant anymore, but the things I said about Funko are relevant because they are making these repeated pattern mistakes and they will continue to in the future. So signs to look out for on things you might want to miss out or a series that you might want to pass on collecting, things to consider. And I hope Funko's watching. I hope you have something to say about it or a solution. So I hope this does help you, and let me know what you think in the comments. If you don't mind these super common figures, let me know. If this pisses you off too, let me know. If I'm just whining and complaining and running my mouth, that's okay to say too. You can let me know that in the comments as well. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the house tour. I will see you all next week for the next video. Let's talk about in the comments. Thank you all for watching and supporting. Love you all. Peace.